Before I introduce the next speaker, I'd just like to say the last line of this song got me, to reach the unreachable stars. And I'll tell you, folks, I'm there tonight, and I want to thank you. I really do. Now I'd like to introduce a distinguished gentleman that I had the privilege to meet last night for the first time. I heard about him, for months and months. And I met the man, and I sure wasn't disappointed. He's here for us tonight. He came all the way from California. And I really feel that we are, not only honored, privileged to have this gentleman in our midst tonight. I'd like to present Jimmy Kay, ladies and gentlemen. I told you before, I ain't going to leave. Can you hear me now? I spoke at a banquet one time, and the people in the back said they couldn't hear me. The man stood up in the front, and he said, well, I can hear them, so I'll change places with you. I've never forgotten that one, My name is Jimmy. I'm a grateful, recovered member of AA. That's where I started, but I'm the most grateful member, I think, of NA tonight. For the 12-step call that you have made on me since I've been sitting up here. I'm seldom at a loss for words. But I'm almost nonplussed right now, How could anybody come up here and say anything after what we've just seen, If we could only put 1/10 of the effort into working the steps of recovery that we've seen demonstrated here in the last half hour. Is there even one person in this room right now that doesn't know that this works? I got a reputation for being pretty corny at times. But all I could think of a while ago when I was sitting there listening and watching and feeling what was going on, because that's where I live, in feeling. I know you do too. I could only think of one thing. And I'm going to steal it from a TV show that you've all seen one time or another. And whether you like it or not, I got to say it. From New York, it's Saturday Night Live. The impossible dream. The possible dream. There's a group started not long ago in Montana. No, not Montana. Yes, it was Montana. And they called themselves the Possible Dream. That's the name of their group. And that ties right in with the impossible dream also. There's no longer the impossible dream. We know it works. There's a little thing in the little white book, that ends up by saying, the big lie, is dead. No longer will society or the addict accept the fact that they can't recover. We do recover. Recovery is the most important asset that we have, and it comes from the steps. And simplicity is what is so hard, I think, for most of us to grasp in the beginning. Simplicity of the program. I don't know whether I'm even going to say anything that I got notes here for tonight. I never do. You know, I make notes and then I forget them. You know? Sometimes I leave them in the room. One time I left them home. You know? I generally like to talk off the cuff anyway. I may refer to it if I forget what I'm saying, you know, because I'm not all here yet either, you know. But I want to thank the people that made it possible for me to come to New York today and to be here tonight. The message is not in words so much. It's in what we've seen right now, you know. We're almost acting like real people, aren't we? And you know why? Because we are. We're possibly the most real people in the world. And I would like to tie in what I said a minute ago about no longer will society or the addict accept the big lie that we no longer recover, you know, in that respect. We can't accept it because we know reality when we touch it. There's something again in the little white book that says, and I remember that because it was such a strange thing to me when I remember feeling reality again. After so many years of not knowing exactly what it was, living that life of illusion. And to feel time, to know what time was. Time was something meant nothing, you know. I tried to kill time. I tried to kill myself, just as you did. Yeah? And I think sometimes, I'll probably do what I do very often. I talk to myself mostly when I'm up here. This is part of my form of contemplation. To think seriously and realistically and within space and time. You know, I was always so far out, space and time meant nothing, you know. But to feel it and to feel what's going on and to appreciate the things that are happening right now, you know. To feel it deeply, because we do feel deeply. That's one of our big problems. My problem was I was too idealistic. I expected too much of life. I wanted more of what there was. And I try to fill my life as you have with the drugs and the booze, the bar rooms and the bedrooms, you name it. We've done it, you know. We can't con each other. What were we looking for? A better way to live, a better thing to have going for us. I remember my first visit to New York. I'll never forget it. I relived part of it again today, you know. 12 and a half years old when I came to this country, and I didn't want to come here. I wanted to go to Australia. But my family came here, so I had to come with them, you know. And we sailed into New York Harbor. And I was up at the crack of dawn because I knew we were going to land that morning, and I wanted to see the Statue of Liberty. I'd heard about it all my life because I love freedom. I've always loved freedom. And I love it more today than I ever did, you know. And I watched that statue as I got closer and closer to it, not as close as I got today, you know. That's a beautiful lady, you know. And we come into Ellis Island. Am I glad that place is closed? I don't know how many of you here or your parents came in through Ellis Island, but that's an experience that I never want to forget. It's indelibly marked in my memory, and I was scared. I had 3 brothers and a sister with me, and they were all younger than I. And my mother was in another part of Ellis Island, and nobody spoke English but me. And I couldn't find anybody to talk to ask what was going on. We had a great big tag on us about this big, like cattle. And finally, I found one man who spoke excellent English. He'd like to scare me to death. You know? When he first walked over to me, he heard me talking to somebody about, find me somebody who speaks English. You know? And nobody understood me, and he came over and he had the great hat and the great coat. He was a white Russian. And he's the man who befriended me on Ellis Island and helped us through the 3 days that we spent there, because a man that most of you probably have only read about in the history books had just died. And he was laying in state here waiting to be buried in this country, President Harding. And they kept us on Ellis Island for 3.5 days. And I went to school on the roof over there on Ellis Island. And all I did when I was up there was watch that statue. You know that one of these days I was going to get off that island, because I hate to be tied up. I hate to be locked down. But nothing bothers me worse than I'm going to take my coat off, because I don't even like that, you know. I like to be free and I like to be easy, and sometimes I'm pretty hard on myself, and sometimes I'm too easy on myself. But when I came through that experience on Ellis Island, we were just getting ready to leave. We were coming ashore, and I saw this man with his wife and his son that I went to school with in Ellis Island. He was the other who spoke a little bit of English, and a baby about 6 months old. They were refugees from Russia at that time, after the revolution. And I went over to him and I thanked him for helping me and my brothers. And I said, when are you going ashore? Are you coming with us? And he said, no. They're sending us back. We're being deported. And I said, what's going to happen to you when you're deported, when you go back? He said, we will probably die. Can you forget things like that? I can't, you know. Not in the light of what's going on in the world today. I know most people in this room don't even remember 1923. Never mind have lived this long, you know. I don't know how many people are my age, but age is unimportant. It's the things that have molded us and formed us. They're probably helped to make us what we are. And thank God we're all a little bit different, you know. That's the diversity of addiction. Addiction is the same, makes us all one of a kind, but we're all different people. And that's the beautiful part. I mean, I reach anybody at any given meeting in anything I say. But maybe you can. Maybe you're the only picture, maybe you're the only concept of NA that anybody will ever see in their entire life. Sometimes I get pretty wild, you know. So far I haven't cussed at all. What's going on here? I get too serious. I get very serious about this program. It is life and death. But I have a lot of fun in life, believe me. I'm a cut up, you know. I like to raise hell. Still do it now and again. I invited a girl up to my room, but I don't think she'll come. Betty, I was only kidding. That's for my wife. Oh, there was times, you know. It's not that I'm too old. I'll guarantee you that. It's just that I have found one of the finest women in the world, you know. Another addict, 13 years on this program. And she's got a better program a lot of times than I have, I'll tell you that, you know. She's the most honest person I've ever met in my entire life. My first wife was very much like her. She was a very honest woman. So I guess somebody has to make up for my lying, cheating, stealing, and so forth. I think whatever gods we believe in, you know, will understand things like that. Because I really think that we find the world's best women. That is, the male finds the world's. I don't know whether the men are the best men, but I know the women are the best women I've ever met. You know? somebody told me, said, when you go to New York, maybe you better carry some extra flashlight batteries and a flashlight because the lights might go out. I said, hell, I used to be able to get around these streets when it was dark years ago, you know. I haven't been in New York for 45 years, you know. Even that's older than most of you sitting here in the room tonight, you know. Yeah, they told me all these things, you know, that, well, they did tell me a few things that I found to be true. They told me really there aren't too many problems with drugs around New York City. Where did you people come from? Yeah, not too many illegal drugs floating around. You know, the NYPD's got everything pretty well under control. Terry told me that. So they told me, you really don't have anything to worry about. And I know it's true, because right after I got off the plane, only 2 people approached me. You know, so it can't be too serious. But we damn near did have a little bit of trouble at the airport, you know. He's carrying one of my bags, and one of the other boys is carrying another one of my bags. And here we see 3 people in uniform, you know, with green berets, come right up in front of us, you know. I thought, what the hell is going on? I know green berets, you know. I always watch those green berets. And we tried to go around this side, and they stepped right in front of us. We tried to go around this side, and they stepped in front of us. We tried to go through the middle, and they just blocked us, you know. I looked at Terry, and he looked at me, you know. And I thought, what's going on here? You know, we addicts always have something come up, you know. We can always figure something out. So we looked at each other, and we bought a half a dozen boxes of Girl Scout cookies, and then they left us alone. You know, I told you that my mind gets fuzzy when I get up and try to talk, because I like to sit down at a table with 3 or 4 people and chew the fat, or get in the room like we did until about 5 o'clock this morning, comparing notes and running the program down to each other, not cutting up old touches, you know. That's nowhere. It helps a little bit if you've got a newcomer and you think that's the best way to identify, but a newcomer looks right through us, sees right through us, he knows what the hell's going on. We can't kid each other. I can't con you, and you sure as hell can't con me, you know. I'll catch up with you sooner or later. I do get a little over-trusting at times and trust people a little too much, but I ain't been burnt that much, you know. It hasn't hurt me that much. And if they needed something, they got it, so that's it, you know. But I have something here, and I couldn't memorize it because my memory is not as good as it used to be, although it's better than it was, you know. You know, Ogden Nash was a favorite of mine, and I guess a favorite maybe of some of you, in the ways he used to write things. He could get to the core of something and explain it better than take me 3 pages to write, and he could explain it in 2 lines, you know. And he wrote something once, you know, and I'm going to read it to you here. He said, "Oft in the stilly night, when the mind is fumbling fuzzily, I brood about how little I know, and I know that little so muzzily. Ere slumber's chains have bound me, I think it would suit me nicely if I knew 1/10 of the little I know, but I knew that 10th precisely, you know." And that's where I get, you know, if I could just remember 1/10 of the things that I know, it'd be fine. So, and then he goes on to say, "Gently my eyelids close, I'd rather be good than clever. And I'd rather have my facts all wrong than have no facts whatever," you know. And sometimes that's the way it is with me. My facts are not quite right. I haven't given myself enough time to think them through. But, you know, as time goes on, I do get enough time to think them through. Because I still wake up once in a while in the middle of the night, you know, when one of those old resentments that never die seemingly, never seem to die completely, comes up, and I say, I still hate that son of a bitch, you know. I still hate him for what he did to me, see? And I have to go through that again. I wish I could forget a lot of the things I remember. And I wish I could remember some of the things I forget, you know. But it just seems to, the right things come up at the right time. And I see people, I keep looking at Lynn. I can't help it, you know. she's little enough, you know, that they say you shouldn't carry the addict, but her, I'll make an exception with her, you know. She's little enough for me to carry, you know. But I look at all these things going on, you know, and I remember the first time that Lynn came out to California. We went up to the San Francisco convention, and we walked through the lobby. I was thinking about it yesterday when I got into the lobby. Got into the lobby, and we're walking through the lobby, and she was sort of trailing Betty and I, and we get to the door, the banquet room like this, and she looked in the door. I'll never forget, it was the second door down. She looked in there, and she turned around to me, and tears were coming down her cheeks, and she said, "You mean there's that many clean addicts in the world?" And I said, "Yeah, and a lot more besides, you know." And it's true here. Imagine how many are not here who are clean. Imagine how many are not here. To say I'm almost overwhelmed, but first of all, I have to read a little thing that we have in our little white book, you know. Yeah, my gratitude speaks, you know. My gratitude speaks in action, you know. Not in words so much, you know. My gratitude speaks when I care and when I share with others the NA way. Right? That's where it's at. And what is that? What is that NA way, you know, for us? Just to help the newcomer, to try to give it away. We're not preachers, we're not teachers, you know. We're not gurus, you know, we're not magicians. We can only offer what we have found and hope that somebody will accept it. We can't do it for anybody, and nobody can do it for us. We must do this ourselves. And that's where the responsibility to ourselves comes in. And I think if we remember nothing else other than that, everything will fall into place, you know. It's the program is too much. The more we talk about the steps, the more we talk about the traditions, the more we seem to confuse not only ourselves but others. If we can only take them just as they're written and apply them as best we can, a day at a time, they'll work. Simplicity is such a hard thing to understand, you know. I don't know why it's so hard to understand the simplicity of the program. It just said work them, you know. Do the best you can with them. We're not all alike. You do the best you can, it'll work for you. We've got to remember one thing. We all have to go to the same lengths to get this program. We sometimes forget that. We have to first stop using, no matter how we do it. And we all have to go to that length. I hear people talk about, well, she's a potential addict, you know. How the hell do you know? How the hell do I know? Were you with them 3 o'clock in the morning? And they're wondering where the hell they're going to get something when they've run out. You know, I remember where I was a lot of mornings when I was looking for something and there was nothing around. I remember what the panic was. I remember that feeling in my gut, and I've had that gut feeling all my life. There's a very popular thing has come back into medicine today, and they're talking about people with nervous stomachs because they're into all this stress stuff now, you know. I was in the hospital when I was 6 years old with a nervous stomach. That's what they called it when I was in the old country yet as a kid. But you know, about that time I found out what to do about it. They used to send me to the chemist shop to get the stuff for the kids that had the colic, and I sure as hell found out which was the paregoric and what wasn't. I was 7 years old, you know. And I knew where all the bottles were hidden. And it was terrible to wonder, what will I put in the bottle when it's nearly all water now, you know? And the poor kids with the colic were having problems. Sound familiar? I come first, right? I remember the ease I felt. I remember how nice and calm I could get. How peaceful. I was always one of these, hell, if I was a kid today, they'd probably have me full of Ritalin, you know? Speeder. I'm a speeder from way back. Thank God so is Betty. You know, we speed together, you know. That's the way we go. That's the way our minds work. We go till we drop, you know. It used to be a philosophy I used to follow many years ago when I was still in Philly. You know, a friend of mine was the sports editor for the Philadelphia Daily News. And boy, what a boozer that guy was, you know. Ooh, he was a corker, you know. He never ordered a drink, he ordered a pitcher. Yeah, Lance Curley. And Lance wrote something one time, and I cut it out of the paper, and I tried to live by it. He said something like, and of course symbolically, the booze stands for the drugs. What the hell's the difference in that case? He said, I wish that I was single with $1 million or so. I'd pack my grip with teacher's cream, and far away I'd go. I'd stock a yacht with 15 blondes and 1 or 2 brunettes. I'd manufacture purple nights and parlay all my bets. How long it lasts, I do not know, nor do I really care. I'd just keep going until I dropped and died from wear and tear. You know? Yeah, that was good, you know? Yeah. Go, keep going, die from wear and tear, you know? But the disorder that we suffer from, you know, is one of the most serious things, I guess, that man ever has had to face. And thank God in the last 30 years we've found a program, and although it was borrowed from another program, it was adapted to suit the addict. Thank God it works for us. And I tell you, the more I look around this room, the more befuddled I get as to what to say. What can I say? It's here. It's in front of me. I wish to God I had a camera big enough to take all your pictures. I'd take it home and hang it right up in my living room. I really would. You know, wherever, I think that Chicago's going to be the next one. Hey, they better build bigger rooms. You know, I'm not a prophet, although I can see the future in a lot of things. But about 8 years ago, I said one time, the time is going to come when we're going to get so large that we're going to fill the Astrodome. And they're going to have to put in extra seats. Going to have to put in extra seats down and around the field, you know. Doggone right. I'm not going to even talk about that. I take everything in threes, though. I will mention that. The way I look at the steps, it made it much easier for me when I could look at them in my way, so that I could understand them as best I could, with the limited amount of brain power I had at that time. And I separated them into trinities because it seemed to me all my life things go in threes, you know. They always seem to go in threes. Physical, the mental, the spiritual, you know. The body, the mind, and the spirit. And I found out that with the steps, when I looked at them in the simplest form, they sort of came in threes too, you know. The first 3 steps I finally figured out were the conditional steps. These were the things that I had to have. That was my base before I could even really make any move. And I got stymied right away because the second and third steps didn't apply to me. I couldn't believe in any higher power, you know. I wasn't really an atheist. I wasn't really an agnostic. I wasn't a Christian. I wasn't a Jew, and I wasn't a Muslim. I don't know what the hell I was, you know. I was befuddled, bewildered, and be damned, I guess, you know. And I figured, well, I can't make this, but I'll take that first step and I'll give it the best shot I got. I just ain't going to use and I ain't going to drink no more. And see if it works for me. And then I figured from that, they told me, and the first thing I ever heard was it was God as I understood him. See? Now, I never played hooky from school in my life. I loved school. I wasn't a very good student by many standards, but and I worked hard for what I had to learn. But never played hooky from school. But I played hooky from church every chance I got, you know. I just couldn't go for it. It got to a point where my family's a very religious family, and deeply into religion, deeply into church. And I couldn't understand them, and I used to think, I don't really belong in this family. I think there's something wrong. I must have come from somewhere else, you know. Somebody else told me later on, a sister in another organization, and I couldn't understand them, and I used to think, I don't really belong in this family. I think there's something wrong. I must have come from somewhere else, you know. Somebody else told me later on, a sister in another church organization told me that I came from Mars. And I'm inclined to believe her, you know. Somewhere or another I got here in a strange way, you know. But I could not believe in the things that I was learning as a kid because I didn't see the things that were happening in my life in the same way that others saw them. The things I had been taught meant that my grandmother, my favorite grandmother, she wasn't going to make it from the religious point of view. And I couldn't figure that one out, because she was my favorite, you know. And later on, it came to a point where she entered into my new life in a way that I find it hard to explain. She came to me many times in the night when I was trying to figure these things out. What are spiritual values? Are there religious values? Can I accept another religion? I was going from one religion to another, as many of us do, and not finding the answers for me yet. And I used to get scared. You know, after I was on the program for about a year and 7 months, I went to a meeting one night, and I never really completely fitted into AA. I always felt there was something wasn't just quite right for me there. And I didn't quite seem to fit any place I ever went. I don't know whether any of you felt that. Feel that in your life or not, you know? A friend of mine who was an avowed atheist, and he died an avowed atheist, but a deeply spiritual man, started another group called AA. But it was lowercase AA, not capital A's, but the lowercase AA. And it was Atheists Anonymous, you know. So I thought, well, I'll go over there, you know, maybe this is what I'm looking for. Maybe I can fit in here. Maybe he's got something. I went over there, and I run into trouble. And they hadn't been formed yet. We were just thinking about it. And Rex, I went over and talked to Rex, and he said, you know, you don't really belong here. You know, you're too damn spiritual for us. I went back to AA, and they told me, you're not spiritual enough to really belong here. What the hell is going on, you know? Where do I belong? All my life, I never seemed to fit. You know, I fit here. Hey, I fit here. All the way. Yeah. And I had to learn in the next 3 steps, being 4, 5, and 6, what they meant. These were the exposition steps for me, the revealing steps. I had to try myself. What was this self that I was that was so bewildered and so lost most of the time? Didn't have a true identity of its own. What could I find here? And so I got into the 3rd step, as I say, and I couldn't understand that, so I skipped and went to the 4th and started on inventory, and boy, was that a rat race. Oh, God. Some of the people I run around with then, they were so deeply into what they were doing that I couldn't understand what they were doing at all. We used to have one dear friend of mine. She used to stand up on the podium and tell us all about her 32 defects of character. 32, and the best I could come up with was about 5 or 6, you know. And I used to talk to Ruth, how can you have 32 defects of character? And she would name them all for me. Down to 32. And I would go home and I'd sit there and I'd think, I can't hack that. How can I take care of 32 defects of character? I had to find an answer. Where did I find the answer? I went back to the religion of my youth, you know. What are the virtues? Faith, hope, and charity are the 3 virtues they told me about. And that's 3. I can handle 3, but not 32, you know. So I found out the way you get rid of your defects of character is to practice the 3 virtues that are known all over the world in every religion, every spiritual way of life. I had faith in this program. I knew it would work, you know. I had very little faith in me, you know, but I had faith in the program. And from that, you know, and I had the hope that it would work for me because I saw it working for others, you know. And the charity I understood is goodwill. The goodwill is the base of our program. It's the base of all spirituality is goodwill. Because from goodwill we grow to affection and sometimes to love. You know? I can have goodwill towards you even though I never associate with you and maybe not want to associate with you. You know? I had to figure these things out for me. This is my life I'm talking about. How do I handle it? How do I look at it and get the answers I need in order to live? In order to succeed in this business of living. And by continuing to practice faith, hope, and charity, my life began to change. But this one night, I went to a meeting and I was very low. I was very depressed because I didn't seem to be able to find these answers as yet. And I don't talk about this very often, but maybe this is the time to do it too. I went down to this meeting, and the more the meeting went on, there was about 30 people there, and the more of them that spoke, the worse I felt. The more they seemed to have something going for them, the more depressed I became. And the more depressed I became, the worse I felt. And it must have been evident to some of the ones around that knew me pretty well, because I finally got up as soon as the meeting was over and headed for the door, and two people stopped me. The woman is still alive. She spent a lot of time in the Peace Corps, and she's back in this country again now, and Johnny's dead. But Johnny and Betty stopped me at the door and said, what's the matter? And I couldn't talk. When I get really deep like that, I can't talk. And I just shook my head. I don't know. And they said, where are you going? I said, are you going home? Yeah. Are you going to be all right? I said, do you want me to come with you? I said, do you want to come over to our house? No. What do you want to do? I don't know. That's the way I would get. I go like that for days sometimes, unable to speak. And I left there and jumped in the car and went home. Walked into my bedroom. My wife and my daughter was in one bed. My daughter was in one bedroom, and my three sons were in the other. And I went into the little place I was holding up in with a few belongings I had left. And up to this time, I hadn't been able to. I was so emotionally ill that I hadn't been able to even sit down and eat a meal with my family. In fact, it took me 3 years before I could sit down and eat a meal with my family. And I was lucky at that, because the psychs told me it would take me at least 5, you know. But they've been wrong before, right? And anyway, I went home and I got out my German dress bayonet, which I used to carry. A lot of people know me. I was known as the Crazy Scot in the San Fernando Valley. And the dress bayonet, I have it at my side, and I have the loaded gun in my back pocket. And I loaded the revolver, and I made sure the knife was good and sharp, and I sat down to wait till the family was sound asleep, because I had already known what I was going to do. And I put my head down on the pillow and figured I'll wait till about 3 o'clock in the morning. By that time, I can kill the boys, shoot my wife and my daughter, and kill myself. And I never felt worse in my entire life. I had nothing left to live for, even though I had been trying hard. So I know how difficult it is for some of us to make this program. I've been there, you know. And I sort of went into a sort of a half-sleep, half-trance, in the dark, laying in the dark. It was about 3 o'clock in the morning, I imagine, from what I can recall. And all of a sudden, the room began to get a little bit light. And I looked, and I saw something that looked like steps. And up on top of the steps was a great big circle, a big orb, a sphere, like hammered silver. And if I had ever been scared in my life, I was scared then. I didn't know what to make of it. And I just lay there, stiff as a board. I couldn't move. And a voice from somewhere in the back of my head and behind that orb said to me, "Don't be afraid." And I relaxed. And I was told a few other things what to do, and I tried to hedge on what I was being asked to do. And I had mental images of what I could do according to what I was being asked to do. And the voice laughed a little bit, and it said to me, "You shyster, you." Now, nobody had ever in my life called me a shyster, but you know what a shyster is, you know. A shyster is a Philadelphia lawyer. But the word came from a New York lawyer named Shyster. Spelled a little differently, but that's where it came from. And I knew what it meant, unprincipled. I was going to have my way regardless. I laughed a little bit because I knew whatever this voice was that was talking to me knew me inside out. I couldn't hide anything. But I was known. And then I was told what to do. And all I could say was, I'll do it to the best of my ability. Now, I can justify, I can explain, And I tried to for months to explain what this was all about. It makes no difference what happened, what the voice was. To me, it was a voice telling me the way I had to go in order to recover. Not just to stay clean, not just to stay sober, but to recover. And there's a big difference between recovery and just staying clean, you know. For 24 hours, I knew complete and unadulterated serenity. The most beautiful thing that ever happened to me in my entire life. I knew everything was going to be all right. Everything was going to be all right with me. Everything was going to be all right with everybody else. Everything was going to work out if I would just do the footwork. And part of that is responsible for what we have today. That's the best I can tell you. I'm not going to go into details about it. But that's one of the reasons that NA was formed. Because of that voice that told me what I had to do. Now, after all the things that have been going on today and last night and will be going on tomorrow morning and the rest of the night, you know, one thing about this program, it says that we have to enjoy our life too, you know. I could go and talk to you for 24 hours about this program, you know. I wear people out talking about the program and about what it means to me, you know. But one of the things we have to do is to have a good time too. This is a social gathering, you know. I'm going to be available in other places at other times, and I'm going to be doing some writing too, you know. And I want to see everybody have a good time, because that's a big part of life. You know, life is a game anyway, you know. It's a game. I con myself all the time, you know, pretending that it really matters much what I do. It really doesn't, you know. Part of the thing about life is that we enjoy ourselves. Providing that, we find that balance between the having, the things we have, and the things we enjoy, and the satisfactions we try to gain, and the area of being, which is what this program is all about. Shakespeare said it when he wrote the soliloquy for Hamlet, you know. He said it. To be or not to be, that is the question. You know, we tried not to be through drugs for many, many years, and it didn't work. But to be what you are, to be the self that you truly are. Another poet, and I'm going to close with this, another poet said it to me, and I had to go back. I read Alexander Pope when I was in junior seminary years ago, and I enjoyed what he had to say. And he said something that went like this, that explained to me. I went back to it and found it in the books. I went back to it so I could understand, because it meant so much to me as to what this program and how I think and how I look at things. Find your own personal God, your own power as you understand it. Don't worry about the other persons. Huh? If I can find the first line, I will read it to you. I'll recite it to you, but I can't remember the first line. See? Well, it's here someplace, so you wait just a second, I'll find it. Oh, something else they're going to say. I didn't intend to speak too long anyway, because an old friend of mine used to say, the mind can only absorb as much as the seat can stand, you know. Anyway, Alexander Pope said, seek then the self. Presume not God to scan. The proper study of mankind is man, you know. Placed on this isthmus of a middle state, a being, darkly wise and rudely great, with too much knowledge for the skeptic side, and too much weakness for the stoic's pride. He hangs between. In doubt, the mind or body to prefer, born but to die, and reasoning but to err. Sole judge of truth, in endless error hurled, the glory, the jest, and the riddle of the world. The greatest adventure that we can experience is finding our true self, no matter how you do it, no matter where you have to go to find it. It was said in the Impossible Dream. That's what that's all about. You know? At least I didn't break down tonight, but I'm so full, you know. That's fulfillment. Spiritual fulfillment is what we were looking for in all those other places. And we got it right here. Discipline I hate. I hate all kinds of discipline, you know, and all kinds of authority. And I was talking to a man last night upstairs. We talked a little bit about it. And I said, I look at discipline now very different than I used to. I found out now by trying to understand me and the people around me and the things I'm trying to do, and I try to find that which is proper and right for me to do the right thing for the right reason. And then I give myself as fully to that as I possibly can, given my weaknesses and given my strengths. And I'll say one more thing, and then I'm going to sit down. When you look at another addict, or look at yourself, look on their strength with pride, and look on their weakness with compassion. Thank you.
Okay, now we'll close in the usual manner, the Lord's Prayer. Let's form a circle if we can, if that's possible. Circle around the tables. Let's make it easy. Let's circle around the tables and just touch each other. That's it. Tighten it up. No, that's cool. Let's not search that. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Keep coming.